Help us.
So the leadership style at play here was ethical leadership. James Parker follows a line of CEOs at Southwest Airlines that were chosen by the stockholders and the board for his honesty and his trustworthiness. But there's a few studies or ways to think about ethical leadership. One of them that we reviewed for this presentation shows that an ethical leader is a moral person. That is, that morality in that personage is identified or seen by the followers in in the same way that idealized influence and transformational leadership is seen by followers. The followers perceive their leader to be moral. They have principled decision making, which was demonstrated in Mr. Parker's decision on how to cut 3 out of the 9 call centers, and their behaviors are present in both their personal and their professional lives. Next slide. The second part of ethical leadership, as identified by the construct that we reviewed for this presentation, was that the ethical leader is a moral manager. And as we saw in the article, his efforts will influence the other managers and employees at Southwest Airlines because of the moral stance that he took on this issue. He communicated his ethical beliefs explicitly and then through his actions by visibly identifying his moral behavior. And he held his followers, the other managers on staff at Southwest Airlines, accountable for their ethical conduct, at least in that he led them to the decision that he had come to, which is to minimize the cuts at the call centers. By doing this, Southwest Airlines stood out from the other airlines which were slashing their staffs to deal with the 9/11 crisis. He stood out from the norm. Next.
It's your
Okay. So what factors did Parker use when he was considering? He definitely took into account the mission and vision of the organization. He looked at how other airlines responded to 9/11. He looked at that online booking shift from customer service focus to the removal of those personal interactions that were going on in the call centers. He took his advisor's recommendations to cut to 3, but then he still did his own analysis and picked on that. He looked at a consistency of the trends. He didn't make a quick decision, but he did it over a period of time. He wanted to preserve the culture and the morale of the organization, and he needed to align staff, and he needed to make sure that he took those individuals into account and didn't just look at the overall health of the organization, but the individuals as well. So the next slide. So what would our group have decided? The short version is that we hope we would have come to the same conclusions that James Parker did because of the importance of maintaining trust, preserving the organization's culture, building on success, making sure that we had careful execution of strategy for both long-term and short-term goals and effects, and to maintain the respect of the organization because of what would happen. So we feel like that they learned their lessons well from this, because when they took over AirTran later, they immediately adjusted their call center structure. They used those incentives to weather the storm that they had used previously, and that in the end they upheld all of the mission and vision of the organization and made the company stronger in the end and maintained that trust that was so important to their future success.
In case you forgot who we were, there we are.